So, the big question is this: how are entrepreneurs and real estate investors like us, ones who want to grow our businesses and who are tired of paying for really expensive alternative lending, how do we tap into the most inexpensive money available and do it without the hassle of typical borrowing? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. I'm Merrill Chandler, and welcome to the Are You Effable podcast. Welcome back to the Are You Effable podcast. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about how the secret motivations of the funding game players are affecting your fundability. We're going to do a deep dive and reveal how these motivations are impacting your fundability and your credit approvals. I'll see you back in a sec. All right, so we're going to be talking about the secret motivations. Now, when I say secret motivations, I'm simply saying that every one of the people and institutions that we're talking about have a particular come from, right? And they may be protecting their intellectual property. They may protect their secret sauce. They may not want to reveal all of their lending guidelines to us, the borrowers, right? But now we're going to do a deep dive into not only who the players are, but what they're all about. All right? So let's take a look. First and foremost, one of the greatest things that you have to understand if you're going to play the funding game to win is that there are different players doing different tasks. And most of us, before I knew, maybe even before this episode, you didn't even know who's doing what. And if you did know, if this recognizes, if what we talk about sounds true or rings true to you, how much have you paid attention to it and actually operated from this paradigm, right? From this perspective. So let's take a look at the three main players and what they do. First of all, there is credit reporting, and credit reporting is done by credit bureaus. Now, we call them credit bureaus for ease of reference because there are literally dozens and dozens of what are called that are called consumer reporting agencies. Now, consumer reporting agencies, there's all types of them, but there's only one group of those consumer reporting agencies that deal with your credit files, and so we call them credit bureaus, all right? So credit reporting is done by bureaus. Credit scoring is done by FICO. Right? Now, there are a bunch of FICO scores out there, and we'll discuss those in a later podcast. And you got to know what's going on, the difference between FICO and FICO scores, right? But there are other players out there that I call FICO score providers that use scores that are not associated with lending decisions at all. All right? So what we need to remember is that bureaus report. Credit scoring is done by FICO legitimately for lending decisions. And then the final one is credit approvals. And credit approvals always come from lenders. Lenders always do the credit approvals. Okay? So those are the three activities. Let's take a look at what the relationship is now between those. First of all, there's you, the borrower, and then you file an application to a lender. That lender sends an inquiry to the credit bureaus, like we've learned in previous episodes. That inquiry goes to the credit bureau. They check your information, and hopefully you've put together your personal credit identity. But in this case, FICO software is used to filter that inquiry. Remember how I said that it was vital that your application data match your credit bureau data, because FICO is the software that is resident on the credit bureau computers and filters for all of that data. Now, I highly recommend that after this episode, you can go to fundinghackers.com and click on the blog, and you're going to get the graphics and the written content of this entire episode. You can also come back to it and watch this episode, since we are a video podcast. But the bottom line is that the inquiry filters through the FICO software. Now, couple of things that you got to understand. There's no such thing as a single static credit score. And by static, I mean like a permanent. There's not a field inside of your credit profile or the credit bureau databases that is labeled score. Your score is a dynamically produced process that goes through filtered software, and there's, as we'll discuss later, there's literally 83 different versions of FICO scoring software depending on what you're doing. There are 28 consumer-facing scores, right? So it depends on the bureau, depends on the version of the software. All things we're dedicating an entire podcast to every one of those topics. But you got to understand that your name, address, phone number, and score is not one of those fields in the credit bureau databases. So once we know that, then we can start understanding that scores are calculated in real time upon the submission of your inquiry. The application, the lenders send that inquiry data through the FICO software, and that's when you get a score in real time right there. All right. So that dynamic software is in play 100% of the time. Now, once the credit bureau data has been filtered, the data is downloaded, your score is created, that dynamic on-the-fly score is created, and you are in a position to get that what we call a credit report. But a credit report is simply a piece of paper or a PDF of your profile caught in a moment of time. This is going to be important for later, and that's why real-time scores are important, because it's just being downloaded in that moment. All right? Then it goes through underwriting, and once you're through underwriting, I'm telling you, lenders take the score, take the data, take your application, and put it through their automatic underwriting systems. Automatic underwriting system, AUS. I'm going to refer to it all the time. So the AUS evaluates, and then they approve or deny you. The lender is the one who approves or denies you. And it's based on those three main things. Number one, the evaluation of the quality of your profile and the application information and your personal credit identity to make sure they know who is actually applying and who they would lend the money to. And then the FICO evaluation. We've talked about it before. FICO evaluates 40 characteristics of your credit profile. Will be the whole podcast or more on that one. But all of those things are done within that 30 seconds to 2 minutes, and you are approved in automatic underwriting. If it stays in automatic underwriting, that's a 2-minute approval. Okay. Now, the question is why is the funding game so complicated, right? What is it about the game that all these hurdles we got to go through? And it's a very simple answer, a crazy simple answer. Lenders do not trust you, period. They do not trust you. And the question is what if they could? So this is where I want to spend a few minutes talking about this dynamic, and I'm going to cover it a number of times because it is the single most important thing of your fundability, is staying in automatic underwriting. Now remember, if they don't trust you, they have had to go to full documentation to prove every step of the way, every single piece of information, every data point that's on your application, they need you to prove. And we call it full doc, okay? Full documentation. That documentation is simply proof of what you're stating on the app. Now, when we get when we explore this further, and when we look behind this automatic underwriting system software, you're going to come to realize that you don't have to prove anything that they measure from your behavior. And the whole process is so complicated. Everything is so complicated because you have to collect your proof of income and your tax returns and your financial statements and all this mess because they don't trust you. And the question now is, what if they could? This is what we're addressing. And if they could, they have designed systems, these automatic underwriting systems, they've designed them to allow you to take complete control over your own approvals. No joke. The lenders have empowered software to make lending decisions. And lenders waste money when a human being has to approve you. So imagine if they trust the software so much, but you know what the software needs to approve you, who's in charge? Who now has full authority over your approvals? That's right, you do. So this podcast is all about answers to the questions of what do they need to know about me to approve me, and then aligning your borrower behavior with those particular behaviors, right? Those particular criteria. And that funding criteria is all embedded in the software. So as we went through the process of reviewing how the application process, then how the inquiry occurs, and the real-time access of your credit profile, whether it's a quality one, a consumer profile, or a professional a borrower profile, whatever you have, they're going to evaluate. So in every following episode, we're going to talk about how more and more we can establish a professional borrower profile. And then when that software looks at it, your approvals happen. Guys, if they can trust you, they will lend to you. And how do you get them to trust you without needing the full documentation of all your full doc, financials, income verifications, pay stubs? Is monitoring your behavior. So in following episodes, we're going to go through every one of those processes and see what you can do to shape your behavior to fit accordingly. This is Merrill Chandler, your host of Are You Effable? And I will see you on the inside. This is Merrill Chandler, host of Are You Effable podcast, and I will see you next time. Hey guys, thank you for listening to Are You Effable? Please leave comments because I would love to read about your aha moments from this episode. And be sure to visit fundinghackers.com to view the blog post, get important links, join our community, and much, much more. And you gotta tell your friends about this podcast. We want them to become effable too.